Happy Monday, everyone. As a matter of fact, happy Memorial Day to all of you. And you know what today is on Mondays. All roads lead to book club. And we are currently reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Weiss. And it is a jab, uppercut, but we are going to learn how to overcome self-sabotage, the ultimate seeker's guide for those brave enough to face their true north and take their power back. So let me know where you're logging in from in the comments, what city, what state, and or what country you might be logging in from. I am hailing right now from Kennesaw, Georgia. So happy to see all of you all. I can see all, but you see me. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? So why am I so passionate about book club? Because many years ago, I realized that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So welcome to book club as you allow me now to fill your cup. Another reason why I am so passionate about book club is because leaders are readers. And if you desire to lead in any capacity, then you must read. And another reason why book club is so important to me is because we are never going to earn more than we learn. That is a fact, Jack. Personal development is monument. It is paramount. It is literally the key to opening the door to your success, but not just reading a book, but reading, then applying what you read. And so most people don't even understand that you cannot do this by yourself. I have a gift. And the reason why book club is, I didn't see the importance or the value of reading or I just didn't like it. But I have a gift, and the gift that I have is to get into the mind of the author. And so we are almost done. I believe this is chapter 4 that we're almost done. Let me make sure. We're actually almost done, heading into chapter 5, right? Which this one is talking about emotional. Chapter 4 is all about building emotional intelligence, So let's dive right in. For those of you brave enough to join us on a holiday, kudos to you, because you said no rib, no beans, no potato salad, no burgers, no sausage, hot dog, deviled eggs, or nothing else was going to stop you from growing. And so I'm going to start off on page 112 so that we can kind of recapture where we ended, and then we'll finish this chapter before we go into chapter 5. We'll finish chapter 4 today. So what you do every single day accounts for the quality of your life and the degree of your success. You know, it's amazing. I was doing a Facebook Live today talking about your mouth and what we say out of our mouths, and how that our words and our thoughts literally determine who we are and the success that we have. Well, what you do every single day accounts for the quality of your life and the degree of your success. So are you waking up and commanding your day? Are you waking up with the right mindset? Or are you waking up looking to nag and look for every negative thing? Like, do you see the clouds outside as a negative thing, right? Do you see people, are you offended by every post that you see on Facebook? Well, if you're offended by every post that you see on Facebook and you think that everybody's talking about you, there must be some truth in what you're reading. And it's time to take that proverbial look in the mirror and determine it. So it's not whether you feel like putting in the work, but whether or not you do it regardless. That's what makes it a difference, right? This is because the outcomes of life are not governed by passion. They are governed by principle. We talked about this last week. You may not think that what you did was important, but it was. You may not think that little things add up, but they do. So you keep eating 3 cookies a night. And we don't see those 3 cookies a night as a big thing. But 3 cookies a night turns into times 7 days. That's 21 cookies a week. 21 times just 10 is 210 cookies in 10 months, right? Not including 42 more, 253 cookies a year. Just because you eat 3 cookies a night. 1 Pepsi a day. 1 Pepsi a day will put 10 pounds extra on you a year. Just 1 Pepsi a day. So what you do every single day, even though it's a little thing. It's a little thing. No, you may think that the little things add up. You think that they may not add up, but they do. Consider the age-old brain teaser. Would you rather have $1 million in your hand today or a penny that doubles every day for the next month? The 1 million right now sounds great, but after a 31-day month, that 1 penny would be worth over $10 million. Making big sweeping changes is not difficult because we are flawed, incompetent beings. It's difficult because we are not meant to live outside of our comfort zones. We talked about that this morning as well. If you want to change your life, you need to make tiny, nearly undetectable decisions every hour of every day until those choices are habituated, right? Habits, right? Then you'll just continue to do them because you can't break a bad habit. But what you can do is replace them with a better one. If you want to spend less time on your phone, deny yourself the chance to check it one time today. If you want to eat healthier, drink a half a cup of water today. If you want to sleep more, get to bed 10 minutes earlier tonight than you did last night. If you want to exercise more, do it now for just 10 minutes. If you want to read one page. If you want to meditate, do it for 30 seconds. Then you keep doing those things, do them every single day. You'll get used to not checking your phone. You'll want more water. You'll drink more water. You'll run for 10 minutes. You won't feel like you have to stop. So you won't. You'll read one page, grow interested, and read another. At our most instinctive physiological levels, change translate to something dangerous and potentially life-threatening. No matter why we build our own cages and stay in them, even though there's no lock on the door. So we're in prison and don't even have to stay there because there is no lock on the door. Trying to shock yourself into a new life isn't going to work. And that's why it hasn't yet. Because you go cold turkey thinking, yeah, I've changed. And you really haven't. You really haven't decided. You just made an emotional decision based on the fact that you're sick of and you know what? There are times when an emotional decision will work and you just make that change. But you haven't been able to do that all of your life. And so if you haven't been able to do it all of your life, what makes you so certain now that, oh yeah, I've decided, which is why you can't even go 10 days, 20 days, 30 days with a regimen because you really haven't decided. At our most instinctive physiological level, right? So trying to shock yourself isn't going to work. You don't need to wait until you feel like changing to start changing. All you need is to make one micro shift at a time and then let the energy and the momentum build. Your mind is anti-fragile. Is your brain the greatest antagonist in your life? Is irrational fear at the core of the majority of your greatest stressors? Do you ever have the hunch that you're almost seeking out problems, creating issues where they don't even exist, overreacting, overthinking, and catastrophizing? Catastrophizing. I don't even know what I was thinking just there, right? If you said yes to these, congratulations, you're self-aware. You know what? Let me go back. There was a time when I would be like, oh my God, I said it wrong. I don't care what you think. The fact that I continue to try to get it right, I don't care what a person is thinking at that moment. I really don't. Because I am not in prison to what your opinions are. Because you might pronounce a word better than me at a certain time doesn't mean you can make more money than me. You know how to do that, right? Or you know how to cook better, or you know how to sing better. So I don't really, there was a time when I used to get hung up over stuff like that, but I don't care because what I'm great at, maybe you aren't, and what you're better at, maybe I'm not. It doesn't make me any less of a person. So I don't really care when people judge me, because what I learned as a kid is when you're judging someone else, that finger is pointing back at you. So I just wanted to help somebody right there. Yep, I said it wrong the first 3 times, but then I got it right. If you said yes to these, congratulations, you're self-aware. I am self-aware. You're also just like anybody else. If you feel like you're always subconsciously scanning your life, trying to identify the next thing to worry about, the next potential threat to fear, you'd be right. What we fear most is what our minds identify as the least likely threat that we cannot control. If the threat is highly likely, we don't fear it, we respond to it. That's why most worries come from just identifying the one thing we cannot control, but the one small, unlikely thing we cannot control. So why do our minds need this, though? Can't we just enjoy what we have and be grateful? To a point, absolutely we can. But our minds also need adversity. And that's why it's instinctual to keep creating problems, even if there aren't any real ones in front of us. The human mind is something called anti-fragile, which means that it actually gets better with adversity. Like a rock that becomes a diamond under pressure, or an immune system that strengthens after repeated exposure to germs, the mind requires stimulation in the form of a challenge. Type challenge in the chat. Now, let me tell you something that our pastor said on Friday night. So many people run from adversity. But do you understand that it is in the times of adversity that we learn the most about ourselves? It is in the times of adversity that we become the most creative. It is in the times of adversity that we build more endurance and more strength. It is in the times of adversity that we become more versatile, we grow, we stretch. So why do we run from adversity when it is in those times that a diamond is being formed? And just when you're on the break of something amazing happen, you go and start feeling sorry for yourself, and you run from the challenge. And so every single time that happens, you go back down to the bottom, and you got to repeat all those tests all over again. That's like getting to high school and deciding, nope, I'm a reverse and roll all the way back down to kindergarten. Who does that? You're right there, get ready to graduate. And you decide, I don't like the way this feels anymore. Let me go back to kindergarten. And you got to repeat kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th, all over again. If you deny and reject any kind of real challenge in your life, your brain will compensate by creating a problem to overcome. Except this time, there won't be any reward at the end. It will just be you battling you for the rest of your life. Some of y'all are not battling, not your business is not growing and stuff like that. You're battling you. You're battling your laziness. You're battling your procrastination. And so this is what'll happen. You don't do much of anything. You don't connect. You get on trainings. You don't take notes. You're not connected. You're not nothing, right? Then what you'll do is, because now you're out of place, you're not where you need to be, you'll text somebody and ask them for an answer to something that you really should already know, right? And then when they don't respond or give you the answer that they want, you'll blame that person instead of blaming you. When you were the one that were not connected the whole time. You were the one that get on trainings and you're really not on trainings, because you even tell people, well, just get on and act like you're there. Yeah, I get all those messages from people. Did y'all know that? Yeah, but they told me to just get on and act like I'm there. So you're not really there. You don't know what's going on. You're not connected. And now somebody doesn't respond to your little message. And now that's the problem why your business might be failing. No, the problem is that you're not connected. You're not involved. You're not on trainings. You're not taking notes. You're not present when you're there. But it's everybody else's fault but yours. So the brain will compensate by creating a problem to overcome, except this time there won't be any reward at the end. It'll just be you battling you for the rest of your life. The cultural obsession with chasing happiness, shielding oneself from anything triggering, and the idea that life is primarily good and any challenge we face is a mistake of fate are what actually weaken us mentally. Think about it. The movie said the pursuit of happiness. Happiness is from within. The pursuit. He was on a chase, a manhunt for happiness, when happiness is really contingent upon something happening to you, which is why you should have joy, everlasting, full of glory. Joy, unspeakable joy. It cannot be broken. It cannot be taken, snatched. Shielding the mind from any adversity makes us more vulnerable to anxiety, panic, and chaos. Those who can't help but create problems in their minds often do so because they have ceased creative control of their existence. Wow! They move into the passenger's seat, thinking that life happens to them rather than being a product of their actions. Well, we just said that and I hadn't read this. I just said that and I hadn't even read this. Who wouldn't be afraid if that were the case? Yeah, I'd be afraid if I was just thinking I'm going to just let life happen to me instead of taking control of the reins. But what most people don't tell you is that adversity makes you creative. It activates a part of you that is often latent. It makes things interesting. Part of the human narrative is wanting something to overcome. The trick is keeping it in balance, choosing to exit your comfort zone and endure pain for a worthy cause, focusing on problems that are real problems in the world, like life, hunger, or politics, or whatever else there could be. But most importantly, it's about staying engaged with what we can control in life, which is most things, if you really think about it. Anti-fragile things need tension, resistance, adversity, and pain to break and transform. We get this by deeply commuting with life and being part of it rather than fearing our emotions and sitting on the sidelines. You can't stay there forever, nor do you really want to. Embracing the grit of it all was what you were made for. Lean in and start living. New change creates adjustment, shock. Of all the things that nobody tells you about life that you might not experience, instantaneous happiness after a positive life change is perhaps the most confusing. The truth about your psyche is this: anything that is new, even if it is good, will feel uncomfortable until it is also familiar. Write that in the chat. Anything that is new, even if it is good, will feel uncomfortable until it is familiar. Anything that is new will feel uncomfortable until it is also familiar. Our brain works the opposite way, too, in that whatever is familiar is what we perceive to be good and comfortable, even if those behaviors, habits, or relationships are actually toxic or destructive. Well, because it's comfortable, it's familiar. We think it's good. No, it's not. Anything that doesn't cause me to grow, I don't want it around me. I don't. I don't want stinking thinkers. I don't want people who think they know everything around me. I don't want people who talk too much around me. I like people that listen. I don't want people who aren't growing around me. I don't want people who are lazy around me with no energy. I don't want that around me. I don't. I don't want people that have no creativity around me. I don't. I don't want people who are always talking about other people around me. I don't. And if I see that happening a lot, I will remove myself from you. I will ask you to leave my presence. Because I don't. Like, what good is that? What is that doing for you? Making you feel good because you can talk about somebody? It's like, I don't like it. Our brain works the opposite way too. And that whatever is familiar, that is what we perceive to be good and comfortable, even if those behaviors, habits, or relationships are actually toxic or destructive. Positive life events can actually trigger depressive episodes. This happens for a few reasons. First, a spike and then a decline in mood or attitude can exacerbate stress. Second, the expectation that a positive event will eliminate all stress and bring unprecedented happiness is a destructive one because the event rarely does that. This is why weddings, childbirth, or a new job can be so incredibly stressful. On top of being a massive life change, there's also the silent assumption that this should be a wholly positive thing and anxiety and tension should be eliminated. No. So hitting a new rank in your business, that's stressful. It's stressful because now I hit the rank, but what do I do to maintain it? And the only thing that you can do to maintain it is grow. But here's the problem. People don't realize. They think that you have to actually grow before you hit the rank. No, you actually hit the rank and then you got to now grow to it. You grow to it to maintain it. But because people won't grow because they look at all the flaws and the faults of everybody else instead of their own, even though we can hear you when you talk, there's no growth. There's no depth. There's no substance to anything that you say. You have not maintained it because you have not grown. Oh, so you hit it and that was good for you because now you got into the inner circle. But you don't understand that growth will keep you in the inner circle, because you can get in the inner circle and still get kicked out because you refuse to grow. Take that one, and I hope y'all hear that, because just because you get into those circles, getting in because you hit it won't keep you there. And you're going to find that other people are going to run circles around you because you too busy wondering what's going on with them instead of what's going on with you. I don't even know where that came from, but somebody must have needed to hear it. Positive life events can actually trigger those things, right? It is jarring to discover this isn't the case. Overall, it comes down to the simple fact that any accomplishments, achievements, or life changes, no matter how positive, elicit change. It elicits change. Change elicits stress. This is particularly true for those who are already predisposed to anxiety and depression, because the concept of one's comfort zone is absolutely essential to stabilizing their mood. This is also why those people can often seem overwhelmingly particular or narrow-minded. What are the signs of adjustment shock? Adjustment shock can manifest as simply an increase in anxiety or irritability. However, it is often more complex than that. Adjustment shock often comes from a hypervigilance. If you make financial gains, your mind immediately shifts to what could potentially derail your progress. A big bill that could come up, or the loss of a job you just got. If you have a new happy relationship, you could become paranoid about infidelity or lies. Adjustment shock can bring to light unconscious attachments and beliefs. If you are someone who was raised to think that wealthy people are morally corrupt, you are going to resist having more money. If you wanted to be famous, to be more loved, you are going to resist public success, because famous people are often more criticized and disliked than the average person. Adjustment shock can bring feelings of intense fear. This is because when we attain something we very much care about or have worked toward for a long time, our instinct can be to shield ourselves from the potential loss of it by putting up walls, desensitizing ourselves to the experience. We often resist most deeply the things that we want most, because there is a price to pay for what we want most. This is because of adjustment shock. Though we don't always know that's what's causing the resistance, it is scary to receive everything we want because it forces us to shift out of a survivalist, fear-based mindset and into a more stabilized one. If all we are accustomed to is doing what we need to do to survive, we are then confronted with the next phases of our self-actualization. If we are no longer worried about basic survival, our minds are free to turn to the bigger questions in life. What is our purpose? Have we lived meaningfully? Are we who we want to be? We often think of big achievements as a get out of life easier card. No, life doesn't get easier. No, it does not. You don't grow up the ladder and it gets easier. It actually gets more intense. And if you can't handle your little problems, let's just say you just joined, especially in network marketing, I'll talk network marketing terms. You join a company and you hit the first little rank, which is like silver, not little rank, but the first rank, silver in our company, silver, or brand ambassador, where you get binary qualified, right? And you can't handle binary qualified problems like making sure you're active on both sides of your business. How in the world do you expect to handle diamond problems if you're falling apart at binary qualified problems? At silver problem, you can't manage to figure out, you've been in a year, but you don't know what products work for somebody. You're still asking around the questions because you haven't studied to show thyself approved, a workman, which is what the Bible says. And now you're thinking you're going to handle diamond problems, but you haven't figured out how to handle the essential problems, right? So it is scary to receive everything we want because it forces us to shift out of survivalist, fear-based mindset and into a more stabilized one. If all we are accustomed to is doing what we need to do to survive, we're then confronted with the next phases of self-actualization. If we're no longer worried about basic survival, I read that. We often think it comes with a get out of life easier card. They rarely are that. In fact, the opposite tends to happen. They level us up, force us into greater responsibilities, to think more deeply about big issues, to question ourselves and what we previously knew to be true, because there's different laws on different levels. So now when you're on a higher level, what worked in the last level, the laws that worked for you in the last level no longer work for you in this level. Where you could get away with some things easier in that level, you can't get away with them at a higher level, at a higher rank. Uh-oh. Like, I'm wondering, for a whole lot of people that claim they need this to work, we have a system called the 30 and 7. Where are your 30 and 7s? Oh, somebody got to check on you every day. Laws, levels. They level us up, force us into greater responsibilities, to think more deeply about big issues, to question ourselves about what we previously knew to be true. Big achievements actually pressure us to become increasingly better versions of ourselves. This is a net positive for our lives, but can be just as uncomfortable as struggling was, if not more so. So, how do I overcome this adjustment shock? When something positive happens in your life, you are going to have to adjust your mindset about other things to create alignment and a new, more accurate and sustainable perspective. If you have anxiety about having more money, you will need to learn how to manage it better. If you have anxiety about relationships, you will need to learn to relate to others like you never have before. Your big life change is going to force you to level up in every way imaginable. And the way to overcome the initial fear of stepping into the unknown is to familiarize yourself with it, to make it a part of you. One that you are certain you are prepared for and that you deserve. Psychic thinking isn't wisdom. When we talk about psychic thinking, we are not referring to the palm reading, neon sign advertised oculist professionals, right? Occultist professionals you can hire to evaluate your energy and predict your future. Psychic thinking is far more insidious than that. Psychic thinking is assuming that you know what somebody else is thinking or what they intend to do. It is assuming that the least likely outcome is the most viable outcome because you feel it more strongly. It is believing that you have missed out on another life, a path that you did not choose, that you were possibly more meant for. It is believing that the person with whom you have the most electric connection is your most ideal life partner. Of course, the way other people see us is dynamic. Their thoughts, feelings, and intentions are largely, if not entirely, unknown to us. The least likely outcome is just that, the least likely outcome. There is no such thing as the path we could have taken, only a projection of our needs and desires onto other fantastical idea of what our lives might be. Electric connection is not soulmateship. Love and compatibility are not the same thing. Psychic thinking detaches us from reality in place of logic. We put emotions, ones that are often incorrect, unreliable, and wholly biased toward what we want to believe. Beyond being inconveniencing, psychic thinking is absolutely terrible for your mental health. Psychic thinking breeds anxiety and depression. It's not just that something scares us or upsets us. It is that we believe that the thought must not only be real, but predictive of future events. Instead of feeling like we are having a down day, psychic thinking makes us assume we are having a terrible life. We heard trust yourself and then begin to liken ourselves to oracles that when a particularly triggering thought or feeling passes through us, it must indicate something more to come. Indeed, psychic thinking as a whole has begun taking on an entirely new light because of the popularity of pop psychology dating back to the 50s and the 60s. Trust yourself. The gurus tell you deep down, you know the truth. This is valid, that your intestines are literally connected to the stem of your brain. Hold on, I want to see how much we got to go. This is really actually much longer than I assumed. What time? How long have we gone in so far? Okay, awesome. So this is valid. Your intestines are literally connected to the system of your brain. The bacteria in your stomach respond to subconscious intelligent awareness faster than your mind. This is why your gut is indeed correct on instinct. But when this advice is given to people who cannot differentiate a gut feeling from fear or from a passing thought that has no bearing on reality, on their lives as a whole, it becomes a dangerous practice in which they become completely stuck and limited because they assume their random feelings are all real. And then not only real, but a prediction of what's to come. Psychic thinking is nothing more than a series of cognitive biases, that the most prominent of which are the following: confirmation. At any moment in time, your brain is inundated with stimuli to help you process. Your conscious mind is aware of about 10% of it or less. Your subconscious mind is still paying attention, logging away information that you might one day need. However, what determines what makes it to that 10% of our conscious awareness has a lot to do with what we already believe, that our brains are literally working to filter out information that does not support our pre-existing ideas, and then to draw our attention to information that does. This means that we are subject to a confirmation bias, which is that we literally seek out and sort through stimuli that supports what we want to think. I'm not stuck. The Wi-Fi is not stuck. We're not frozen. But we're going to confirm what we want to think is right, not what's actually right. But we want to confirm what makes us feel good about our lack of effort. Extrapolation is when we take our current circumstances and then project them into the future. Ryan Holiday says it best: this moment is not my life. It is a moment in my life. Extrapolation makes us think that we are the sum of our past or current experiences, that whatever stressors or anxieties we are currently experiencing are ones that will grapple with for the rest of our lives. Unable to see through the problem at hand, we assume it will never resolve itself. Unfortunately, this can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we are so easily defeated and exhausted by the idea that we will never get over our problems, then we make it more likely that we will hang on to them instead of logically trying to resolve them for a lot more time than is necessary. Then we've got spotlighting. Everyone thinks that the world resolves around them. The world resolves all around you and your problems, right? You are thinking about you and your own interest all day, every day. It can be challenging to forget that others are not thinking about us with such intensity, that they are thinking about themselves. Like it amazes me when I hear people like, oh, she must be posting about talking about me, or like, do we really believe that we're that important that somebody takes their whole social media platform content to post about you? That we're that important? That you think somebody thinking about you all day? It can be challenging to forget that others are not thinking about us with such intensity. The spotlight effect is what happens when we imagine that our lives are performative or on display for others to consume. We remember the last two or three embarrassing things we have done and imagine that others are thinking about them actively as well. Can you recall the last two or three embarrassing things someone else did? Of course you can't, because you aren't paying attention. Now, I can recall one thing because it happened yesterday. Something happened in our house yesterday. I can recall that because it happened yesterday. It was hilarious. Spotlighting gives us this false impression that the world is all about us when it is not. These biases, plus others, when combined with psychic thinking or the idea or assumptions and feelings about the world will transpose into reality, are harmful and mostly incorrect. Instead of trying to predict what will happen next, our energy is better used when it is focused intently on the moment, the infinite now. The mystics would say, because the truth is that the past and the future are illusions in the present, and all we have is the present. So instead of trying to use your intelligence to hack what's next, try to get better at where you are currently. That's what's really going to change the outcomes of your life. Logical lapses are giving you profound anxiety. Most of the anxiety that you experience in life is the result in inefficient critical thinking skills. You might assume that because you are anxious, you are an overthinker, someone who obsesses about unlikely and scary outcomes more than is reasonable. The reality is that you are an underthinker. You're missing a part of your reasoning process. Let's start at the beginning. Anxiety is a normal emotion that every person experiences at some point in their lives, typically when circumstances are stressful, tense, or scary. When anxiety is chronic and begins to interfere with day to day functioning, it becomes a clinical disorder. We understand the importance of speaking about mental health with some degree of legitimacy as physical health. However, in the same way that we question what someone keeps tripping over, if they repeatedly sprain their ankle, a lot of anxiety is similarly circumstantial, as many illnesses are. Specifically, anxiety tends to be the result of an inability to process acutely stressful and ongoing circumstances. If we want to heal, we have to learn to process. Type the word process in the chat. If we want to heal, we have to learn to process. This applies to everyone, not just those with a diagnosis. One of the hallmarks of anxiety is rapid thinking. Because you are focusing on some issue so deeply and for so much time, you assume that you are also thinking through the issue thoroughly and arriving at the most likely conclusion. However, the opposite is happening. You're experiencing a logical lapse. You're jumping to the worst case scenario because you aren't thinking clearly, and then you are engaging your fight or flight response because the worst case scenario makes you feel threatened. This is why you obsess about the one terrifying idea. Your body is responding as though it's an immediate threat. And until you defeat or overcome it, your body will do its job, which is to keep you in defense mode, which is really a heightened state of awareness to the enemy. So, what is a logical lapse? Think of something that you aren't afraid of. Maybe something the other people might find scary. Maybe you aren't afraid of flying in an airplane. Many people are. Maybe you aren't afraid of being single. Many people are. Maybe you aren't afraid of a commitment. Many people are. Surely you can think of at least one thing in your life that you are truly unafraid of. Why aren't you afraid of it? Because you don't have a logical lapse there. You can visualize yourself going on an airplane and successfully getting off without freaking out. You can visualize yourself being happily single or happily committed. Even if worse were to happen, you can think of a situation through its entirety, from exposition to climax to conclusion. You know what you would do. You have a plan. When you experience a logical lapse, the climax becomes the conclusion. You imagine a situation to figure out that you would panic. And then because you're scared, you never think through the rest of the scenario. You never think about how you'd get through it, what you do to respond, and how you eventually move on with your life afterwards. If you were able to do this, you wouldn't be scared of it because you wouldn't think it had the power to end you. So why are you afraid of flying? Because you haven't seen yourself successfully coming off the flight. You think it has the power to end you. This is why exposure is the most common treatment for irrational fear. By reintroducing this stressor into your life in a safe way, you are able to reestablish a line of thinking that is healthier and calmer. Basically, you prove to yourself that you will be okay even if something scary does happen, which most of the time it does not. You also will come up with scenarios and reasons as to why you can't go do it, to avoid having to do the very thing that you're afraid of. Making excuses to avoid the very thing that you're afraid of. Either way, mental strength is not just hoping that nothing ever goes wrong. It is believing that we have the capacity to handle it, even if it does. Maybe you don't have that self-belief yet. That's okay. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that you build slowly and over time. It's something that you develop with practice by addressing small problems and then learning healthy coping mechanisms and effective reasoning skills. The thing is that there are millions of scary things that can happen to us in our lives. That is true for everyone. When we are hung up on one scary thing over another, it's not because it's more imminent or like it's not because it's a more imminent or likely threat. It's because we are less convinced that we would be able to respond to it. To heal, we don't need to avoid it. We need to develop logic to see situations for what they are and respond appropriately to them. So often in life, our biggest anxiety comes not from what's actually happening, but how we think about what is happening. And in that, we reclaim our emotional freedom and power. This is so good. Faulty inferences are holding you back from success. Faulty inferences are holding you back from success. If you're familiar with body typing, you'll probably be familiar with the terms endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorph. Though every one actually falls somewhere within the spectrum of these, meaning that everyone has varying degrees of each. The traits you default to are typically your primary body type. If you've studied these types, you'll know that endomorphic bodies are often associated with increased fat retention. The assumption here is that these people have the worst metabolism, but that is false. Endomorphs actually have the best metabolism of anyone. They are alive today because their ancestors adequately adapted to survive. Their metabolisms do precisely what were intended to do: store fat for latter use. Something similar happens with highly intelligent people who experience high levels of anxiety. You assume that because these people are smart, that they would be able to use logic to disrupt illogical fears. Logical lapses or inability to adequately reason often generate anxiety. However, their brains are doing exactly what they were meant to do, which is to piece together unrelated stimuli and identify potential threats. Highly intelligent people have a psychological function that others do not, which is the ability to infer. They can they can extract meaning and understanding from things that others take at face value, simply take at face value. This is why people who have extremely high IQs often struggle with basic things such as social skills or driving a car. Where others see the world as one-dimensional, the highly intelligent see it as three-dimensional. They think more deeply than it is often necessary. This gives them the ability to create, understand, strategize, and invent. In the same way that the endomorph's excellent metabolism can work against them, so too can a highly intelligent person's brain. This is because at times they make something called faulty inferences, which are fallen fallacies, biases, and incorrect correct assumptions are made from valid evidence. What's happening in your brain when you're very anxious is that you're taking an often innocuous stimulus and extracting some kind of meaning or prediction from it. When you're scared, when you're afraid, your brain is working in overdrive to identify the thing that could potentially hurt you and then creatively come up with ways to completely avoid that experience. The smarter you are, the better you become at this. However, the more you avoid a fear, the more intense it becomes. So, what is a faulty inference? A faulty inference is when you come up with a false conclusion based on valid evidence. This means that you are seeing, experiencing, or understanding what you're seeing, experiencing, or understanding might be real, but the assumption that you are piecing together from it is either not real or highly unlikely. So, what you're going through could be real, but the assumption that you make from it could not, maybe not reality. It's highly unlikely. One example is a hasty generalization, which is when you make a claim about an entire group of people based on one or two experiences that you've had. This is the bias at the base of a lot of racism and prejudice. Another example is post hoc ergo propter hoc, which is what happens when you assume that because two things happened around the same time, that they must be related, even if they are not. A false dichotomy happens when you assume that there are only two possibilities that could be valid, when in reality, there are far more than you are simply aren't aware of. An example of this is when your boss calls you to a private meeting and you assume that you must either be getting a promotion or getting fired. A slippery slope to play off of that example is another false interference in which you assume that one event will set off a series of others, even if they certainly will not. These are just some of the myriad ways that your brain can, in a scene or a sense, betray you. Your brain can betray you because oftentimes we make our decisions based on some experience that we've had in the past. The two are not the same. Wow. So our brain, right, could be betraying us. Though it intends to keep us alert and aware, sometimes the threat becomes overinflated, unable to decipher the difference that your body responds regardless. How do we correct this? Correcting faulty inferencing begins with first being aware that you're doing it. In the majority of cases, once you realize that you're thinking in a false dichotomy or making a hasty generalization, you stop doing it. You understand what it is and you let it go. Training your brain to stop doing it automatically takes time. Think of your mind like a search engine that auto-fills your terms. If it's something if it's something you've input many times over the years, it's still going to come up for a while. You have to work on consistently adding new thoughts, options, and stimuli to shift what it comes up with naturally. This is not only possible, it's inevitable. What you consistently do is what you adapt to. What you consistently do is what you adapt to. Your brain will start to reorient your comfort zone, and eventually it will feel as natural to think logically as it once did to think dramatically. It will feel as natural to be calm as it does now. The neurological reason there's a stereotype about depressed creatives. Any artist will tell you that the toughest times in their lives inspired the most groundbreaking work. What they won't tell you, though, is that crises is not necessary to function. Write that down. Crises, or put it in the chat. Crises is not necessary to function. But you get so addicted to crises that you start inventing crises and chaos. Well, of course it's not. You're thinking crises is the worst case scenario. And yet, how many of us place ourselves in a state of panic over fear of that least likely scenario coming true? How many of us, in an effort to shield ourselves from panic, actually create a crisis out of our fear each day? We're not just masochists. We're wildly intelligent, unconsciously functioning beings. Our brains understand something. If we imagine our worst fears, we can prepare for them. If we mull them over again and again and again, we can feel protected in a way. If we're ready for the storm, it can't hurt us, except it can. Worrying excessively is not a malfunction. You are not of lesser character because you can't just stop and enjoy life. Worrying is a subconscious defense mechanism. It's what we do when we care about something so much, we are equally terrified that it could hurt us. So we prepare to fight for it. What is the exact opposite of fear. That's what you want. That's what you want so much that you'd go to the ends of your sanity to defend it. There's nothing wrong with you for thinking this, nothing wrong with you for thinking this way. But there's also nothing wrong with you for being ready to move in a new direction. The reality is that worrying does not protect us the way that you think it might. We cannot beat fear to the finish line. Worrying sensitizes us to an infinity of negative possible outcomes. It shifts our mindset to expect or seek out and create a worst case scenario. If a crisis were to occur, we'd start panicking because our brains and bodies had been prepping for this epic war for a long time. Had we not preeminated these fears so excessively, we wouldn't be impacted were they to actually happen. We see the situation for what it is and respond accordingly. That's where this nasty cycle forms. Once we worry ourselves sick over something that is totally delusional, and it doesn't happen because, of course, it was never going to, we start to associate worry with safety. See, I thought this through so many times, I've avoided it. But that's not what's happening at all. Just telling someone to stop worrying and be present strengthens their impulse to be fearful because you are effectively asking them to place their guards down. Making yourself feel more vulnerable when you're already at your edge is not the answer. Instead, you have to find a different way to feel safe rather than spending your time rehearsing how much you'd panic if such and such a situation were to come to fruition. Imagine how a third party would handle it if they were in your shoes. Imagine getting to the other side of the issue, perhaps even treating it as an opportunity to create something that you either would otherwise couldn't. Rather than spending your time shrinking yourself and your life out of your fear of potentially confronting some kind of hardship, work on developing your self-esteem and know that even if you were to fail, you wouldn't be judged, exiled, or hated in the way that you fear. Rather than spending your life trying to identify the next thing to worry about and then overcome, learn to move into a new pattern of thinking in which you recognize that you don't need to balance out the bad with the good to live a full and fair life. Stability and wholeness, health and vitality are your birthright. I'm going to say that again because I say it all the time. Stability and wholeness, health and vitality are your birthright. The book says it and the good book says it. Stability and wholeness, health and vitality are your birthright. Say it. It's my birthright in the chat. You are allowed to have everything you want. You are permitted to be at peace. Say it in the chat. I am allowed to have everything that I want. I am permitted to be at peace. Worrying is so primal in the way that it fulfills a deep need within us to feel as though we've conquered, and thus we are protected and saved. Yet at the same time, our discomfort with it is a higher aspect of ourselves informing us that isn't necessary, and in fact, it's holding us back from the people we want and are meant to be. There's a better way to feel your emotional hunger, and it's not fighting yourself for your own inner peace. Thus ends chapter 4, Emotional Intelligence. And next week, I'll be back home by then. Next week, we will begin chapter 5, Releasing the Past. Well, I hope that you're enjoying your Memorial Day, and I thank you all for braving it through to come and listen to book club today and to join me in our journey to overcoming self-sabotage, transforming self-sabotage into self-mastery. Congratulations for making it through another chapter of The Mountain Is You. Now listen, don't eat too much, but if you do, I got something for you. Okay. What I want you to do is make sure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel right there. I'm sure it's coming up, right? Subscribe so that you get all the notifications when we are live here on the Nina R. Moore YouTube page. When we go live, we're live several times throughout the week. You also want to make sure you go to my website, ninamoorer.com, and subscribe, golly geez, right? Because you are going to get a free gift when you subscribe to my website. Stay connected to me. You never know what we're going to be dropping on that website. All right, you guys, I will be speaking in Georgia. If you are in Georgia or can get to Georgia on June the 22nd, you want to go and register at adivedeeper.com. D-I-V-E, deeper.com, and go on and get your ticket, right? We will be in Philadelphia this week on Friday at Hello Summer, an event where we are raising money to help children in Philadelphia go to summer camp, to help parents that cannot afford to pay for their children to go to summer camp. And you can get your ticket at hellosummer.events. Hellosummer.events. Somebody type that in the chat. Now, listen, if you use the code BEPIC, BEPIC, you can get yourself 20% off that ticket in Philadelphia. Be epic. So go to hellosummer.events and grab your ticket now for this Friday, May 31st from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Spring Garden Street. We cannot wait to see you all there. Listen, enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of this holiday. Hope that you actually got some rest. Have a bling-tastic rest of your evening. Pay it forward this week. Be kind to one another. Do a good deed. Share this book club with other people so that they can join us, so that we can learn and grow together. I want you to remember this, that God loves you, I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Much love from the Wellness Queen. We'll see you soon.